Welcome to Haverchat, a culture cast here at Haverkamp Group, where we take you behind the scenes to learn a little bit about who we are. Welcome to episode number 3. My name is Todd Wiesenberg, and I'm the Chief Culture Officer here at Haverkamp. Episode number 3 is actually a part of an 8-part series in which we are introducing you to the men and women, the key leaders within the organization who help shape who we are. In episode number 1, we had our founder and CEO, Brent Haverkamp. Episode number 2 was our president at Haverkamp Properties, Dave Hyman. And today's guest is Zack Ludwig, our Chief Operations Officer for Haverkamp Construction. Welcome, Zack.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate having me today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Zack, we're going to just jump right into it. And we always like to start this time off where we help our audience get connected to our guests through something we call the 4 F's. They are from, family, fun, and future. So we're going to start with the from. Just like to know where you're from, kind of born, raised, and within that from question, a little bit of your professional journey.
Yeah, you bet. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My parents moved down there for my dad to go to school. And I lived there for the first year of my life. And then we moved back to Iowa, where I grew up in the small town, or outside the small town of Glenwood, Iowa. It's in southwest Iowa near Council Bluffs. It's kind of a bedroom community for people that commute to Omaha, and both my parents worked in Council Bluffs in Omaha. So I grew up there and came to Iowa State right after high school and studied forestry. And my goal was to get out of Iowa. I liked Iowa, but I saw so much more excitement and unknown outside of the state that I grew up in. So came to Iowa State, studied forestry. During that time, I started attending Cornerstone Church and got to know Brent and Paul through that. And backing up a little bit, I was invited to help somebody roof Paul's house. He had hired some college students to roof his house, and a friend invited me to his house, and I got to talking to Paul. And during that time, he kind of, I don't even remember how it all happened, but he ended up hiring me to remodel his house. And he moved out of his house while I was going to school. And it was probably not the wisest thing on my side or his side because it took, like most construction projects do, it took twice as long as it should have to get done. But I learned a lot doing that. And Paul put an incredible amount of trust in me to have this random college kid remodel his house while he was in college. And then when I was getting ready to graduate, Paul kind of proposed that I come work for him.
Okay.
So he and Brent had some retail businesses that they were just kind of getting off the ground, and Paul saw the potential in me, though it had nothing to do with my background. He just wanted some people. So I said, well, Paul, I have this goal to get out of Iowa and to go study or go work in a park or do something with my forestry degree, but I'll give you 3 years. So I'll give you 3 years.
Okay, so 3 years. And how many years have you now been with us?
So 23 this year.
Okay.
So once I got into it, I think I got to know people in town, kind of got a life established in Ames outside of college. So it kind of became comfortable and felt okay to be here, and kind of came to realize that it's not such a bad place to be. So 3 years turned into 5 years. And then it just, at that point, there was never any desire to leave. It was just, the job was great. Working here was great. Life was great. So there was no reason to leave.
So did Haverkamp Construction exist 23 years ago when you started, or what was the evolution of Haverkamp Construction?
So Brent was just getting into construction. So Brent had built some apartments in town as an owner, but not as a contractor. And he could probably tell a story better, but he had another apartment developer build for him. And he said, well, I can do that. So he started out doing that. I was able to help build the first apartment building that Brent had done.
And which one was that? Where was that?
Riverwood
down in Pleasant Hill. Still in the portfolio today.
Right. So prior to that, he was doing some commercial buildings, and Corey was leading that. The Jiffy Lube building was kind of the flagship beginning of the commercial construction, and they went into convenience stores. So it's kind of feeding that retail business that was just getting off the ground and growing. So after about a year working with the retail businesses, it wasn't really the best fit for me. I wasn't enjoying it. Brent had a need in the construction. He's like, I'm going to start this construction company. I'm going to build apartments. You got this guy, Zach, who says he knows how to do construction. And really my background was more of handyman construction and remodeling. My dad, we remodeled our whole house when I was growing up. His dad was a contractor, but I never really formally had any construction education. But Brent needed somebody there. So I kind of moved over from the retail businesses over to construction and kind of got thrown on the job site the first time. And I really had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to figure it out. I was pretty resourceful to learn answers. That was a little bit before, I mean, the internet existed, but it wasn't the resources there are today. So it wasn't as simple as YouTubing how to do something. So it was kind of self-taught, self-learned, made a lot of mistakes, honestly, but grew from those. And Brent graciously let me make those mistakes to be able to learn, because that's how we knew how to do it.
Okay. So it started with Riverwood and then just kept kind of steamrolling. Yeah. Talk about how it's steamrolled over the last several years.
Sure. Yeah. So started with Riverwood, and then an opportunity showed up in Ames with Fieldstone Grand on Coconino. And we were building on Billy Sunday. So it was a lot of different things going. And I look back on it now, and it's kind of a little bit of a blur. I kind of separate it into different buckets. There's the pre-2006, the kind of the middle 2000s, middle to late 2000s, and then kind of Stadium View post. So that's kind of 3 different seasons that we've come through. And I feel like we've just kind of evolved our construction processes through then. So 2006, Brent talked about it a little bit, how he had sold some properties, he had some cash, the rest of the economy was tanking, which really that came in 2007. We kind of came to close on our projects in 2006, kind of saw some turbulent time. So thankfully didn't take any new project, and kind of when 2007, 2008 came, we were kind of poised to be able to buy some of the projects that were going under as for sale rental condos, converting those projects to rental units, and be able to build those out. So we did that for several years, and then those projects kind of finished, and we went looking for new opportunity, and we found that in a project we called Stadium View. And that was one we really went out and found and did. And largely Brent did that. But it was fun to kind of take a new thing, a new student housing property, student built, purpose built. That's something we really hadn't done. We built lots of apartments names, but none of it was purpose built student housing. So we learned a lot doing that. 4-story buildings, flat roofs, kind of a new look, extensive clubhouse with lots of amenities.
Right.
And it got really fun to do kind of new kind of things.
Yeah. Zach, it's been fun to be a part of your story over the last 20 years, my tenure here. And you talked about the 3 seasons. Remind me, because obviously I've known you for a while. I know there was a season in which you actually stepped away from Haverkamp Construction, and you were overseas in Zambia. When was that in part of these 3 seasons?
I believe it was in 2006. It could have been 2005, but I think it was 2006. So somewhere around there. It was a summer, and the church was taking just a 2-week trip over the summer, and I kind of said, "Oh, that sounds like fun. I should go to Zambia. I've never been to Africa. I've always wanted to go to Africa." And then I kind of got cold feet, and I didn't really want to do that. And I found lots of ways to try to get out of it, but I didn't. And was kind of drawn there, and went there with 10 or 12 people, spent 2 weeks in Zambia, building alongside local church pastors, just kind of getting to know them, kind of encouraging them, and sharing the gospel in schools, kind of a whirlwind of a trip. I packed my bag to come home, and I said, that was really great. I can say I've been to Africa, and I'm probably never going back again. Came home and just over time reflected on the time in Zambia, and we weren't particularly busy at work. And I thought, I can do more than I did there. And, coincidentally, I'm not that busy. And it just kind of felt this nudge on me to do more. So I had a conversation with Brent. And I said, Brent, I have this idea. You're not busy. There's no sense in you paying me and keeping me on payroll. How about I go move to Zambia, and in a year, I'll come back and you'll have a job waiting for me. And he said, that sounds good. And it kind of surprised me that it was that easy. But just Brent believed in the mission, believed in the values, and we really didn't have a lot going on. There was a recession looming. So I went and did that. And I worked with an organization called Gospel Link, and I helped they were building a Bible college, pastor training center. I helped build that. It by no means was it complete when I got it was started when I got there. It wasn't done when I left, but I kind of went and worked, and I ended up staying about 9 months. And I think the main reason, looking back, why I decided that was the right time to come home is the organization had kind of run out of money, and there wasn't much to do outside of that. And it was a long time, and I was ready to come home.
Okay, I want to pause there, because obviously that was a very impactful time in your life. Knowing also more about you. This was before you were married, and we'll get into the family side here pretty quickly. But what life lessons did those 9 months teach you, just relationally, or just from a global perspective? You always talked about wanting to get out of Iowa, so you were out of Iowa, pretty much out of Iowa over there in Africa. But also, like, what leadership lessons? What lessons did you learn?
Sure. Yeah. I spent. It was weird, because in one sense I'd never been around more people in my life, because everywhere you go, you're the lone white guy. Everybody's going to follow you everywhere, and you get left alone. Never get left alone. At the same time, I could say it was the loneliest I've ever felt, because for the most part, people would speak English when they want to talk to you. When groups of people got together, nobody spoke English. So I could communicate, and I could work, I could have conversations, but I couldn't have any relation, because it was difficult to have those leisure conversations. So it was a really great time for me for inward reflection. I spent a lot of time inwardly reflecting. I lived in a little 10 by 12 cabin out in the bush. No electricity, no anything. I could hear Africans beating drums in the night, and just pretty surreal. Every morning I'd have about 50 Africans show up, looking at me saying, what am I going to do today, boss? And I'd never had that many direct reports, and I didn't have experience leading and organizing a labor force like that, especially uneducated. Many of them I couldn't speak to even. So learning how to lead and take charge and get the job done with the resources that I had. So you have a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing, with inadequate tools, with nowhere to run to the store, nobody to call to ask how to do it. No internet to look up how to do things. And it's just the ingenuity of having to figure it out, and organize these guys and find a hierarchy structure of, okay, you guys are going to be managers, and you guys are going to report to this guy, and kind of appointing the foreman on the job. And it all kind of came together like day one, because I showed up and you have 50 pairs of white eyes just staring at you like, what are we going to do today? And I'm like, I don't know. What are we going to do today? But getting organized. And then by the time it was time to leave, it was a churning machine. Everyone worked together, and everyone knew what to do. And but I learned a lot doing that.
Zach, what I hear in that story is something we've talked about as leadership, and a characteristic of leaders is that sometimes our title could be chief problem solver. And you had the opportunity to learn there what it means to problem solve at a whole different level.
Right.
And I mean, you didn't have a Menards to go run to and go get more supplies. I mean, there is a lot of problem solving that we can't even relate to, I'm sure, here.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, the closest store was 2 hours away, and the muddy road to get there, half the time you get stuck getting in or out. Even just to get clean water to take a shower, I had to drive for an hour to pump it out of a well. And,
wow.
It was a different life for sure.
Okay.
And I wouldn't trade it. It was hard, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I was 26.
26 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize you were that young.
26. It was 2000. Yeah, right around there.
Under 30.
Right.
Under 30. I didn't realize you were that young. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, hey, that was great. That was a long from part, but you have an interesting story. So I really wanted to unpack some of those things, and we'll circle around on some other things. But I want to get into family. Just would love to hear what your family was like growing up, your current family, whatever you're comfortable sharing. That would just help us to get to know Zach a little bit better.
For sure. Like I said, I grew up in Glenwood. Pretty typical family. 2 parents, loved each other. I was third of 4. I had an older brother, Brian, older sister Sarah, and a younger sister Christina.
Okay.
We were all, I think 6 years was the span of kids. Lived a pretty typical childhood. My parents both worked, so they worked hard. Both of them completed their secondary education while we were growing up to make a better life for us. We didn't have a lot, but we always had what we needed, and my parents worked incredibly hard to make sure we did. Always wanted a better life for us than they had. So I had a good childhood, graduated from high school, came to Iowa State. Iowa State probably wasn't my first choice. I grew up in a family of Hawkeyes, but there was no program that I wanted to do at Iowa. Really, I wanted to, again, leave Iowa. So I looked at schools outside of Iowa, but quickly realized I couldn't afford it. So I'm like, well, I stuck with Iowa State. So my wife and I both got married later in our lives. We both enjoyed, explored, adventured, had lots of adventure prior to, quote, settling down and having kids. So I met my wife online. We were kind of at the stage of our life where you don't meet a lot of other 30-somethings. And so I met her in 2015. She'd been a traveling nurse around the country and recently moved back to Iowa, lived in Des Moines. So we met online and quickly realized that we saw something special in each other. And we dated for a year, got married, and then started having kids. So we built a house and started having kids. Willow is our oldest. She's 5 now, and she loves painting and being creative and keeping her little brother and sister in line. She's the kind of the mother hen of the kids. Then quickly, Ranger came after that. And Ranger's 4 now, and he loves working with Dad and fighting and wrestling, anything that boys like to do. Monster trucks and Ninja Turtles and all those things I learned about. And then Reese is 2. She's our little firecracker, cutest little girl you've ever seen. But she's a pistol, and always trying to pester her older siblings, and they're great. They're the joy of our life, and life looks a lot different now than it did then. But it's awesome. It's awesome being a parent. I never would have thought I would enjoy it as much as I do. But it's really great.
Okay. Well, let's pause there. What's so great about that? Unpack. I mean, what are some things that you are experiencing that you didn't expect, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So my daughter Willow, she's a little mini me. And my wife would say the same. So just seeing myself in them is really fun, and it kind of scary at the same time. So that's really cool. And there's just something about like working hard to instill a future in these kids, and these kids are going to be future leaders, and just teaching them to be the best little human beings that they can be.
Right.
And I think it keeps me in check as well, because I want to be the best that I can be, so that they can be the best they can be. Coming home from work at the end of the day and having them run to the door and greet me is just like the best in the world. And that's something before kids, like, I never understood. It's really fun.
Speaking of fun, I'm going to ask you, what are some things you like to do for fun? Let's talk about your fun today versus what fun looked like, because you talked about being adventurous and your wife being adventurous.
So before kids, and I wouldn't trade the change at all, but before kids, my wife and I both like to go fishing. We spent a lot of time fishing in Canada, riding motorcycles. Those are kind of my two biggest passions for kids, and spend a lot of time and money on that. Travel, along with Zambia, I just like to travel in general. When I was in college, I spent a summer in Kazakhstan, spent some time in Turkey. Fast forwarding to now with kids, we still like to go fishing. It just looks a little different than it does.
You probably spend more time like baiting the hooks than you actually
trying to get the hooks unstuck, recasting, untangling the line. But the kids really like doing that, and we like doing that. They're still at the age where we're at home a lot, because it's easier to be at home. So we spend a lot of time in the yard, building projects. A lot of people who are in construction say they don't like to come home and do construction, but I like to come home and do construction, and I'm always trying to solve a problem and make something better. And I sit on the back porch and look out and say, not look at what it is, but how can that be better? So then I just stir some project. And my wife would say I'm better at starting projects than I am finishing them. We like working on projects around the house. With kids, we kind of do a big garden, and the kids like being outside and digging in the dirt. And I'd like to use that as an opportunity to teach them where our food comes from, and how to grow things. And just my parents taught me that stuff, and I want to pass that stuff on to my kids, so they know how to work hard and do things, and not depend on people to do things for them.
The fourth and final F is future. So when people ask Zack to think about the future, personally or professionally, just how do you think about the future? I guess especially as it pertains to what we're doing here at Havercamp.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. I'll start with my family. We're in the stage of small kids. Quickly, that's going to turn into activities and sports and doing all that. So I see that progressing, and I look forward to these years to come. I've seen how fast they go already, and I know these next 10, 12, 15 years are going to fly by. So I'm trying to cherish every moment of that. Professionally, I've said for a long time I have my dream job. And even though it continues to change, I continue to love it. So I don't have like this pinnacle I'm looking for, trying to get to. The company continues to grow, as we know, and have these plans to grow even more. So the company's growing underneath of me, and I'm filling new roles all the time that are becoming new roles that we didn't have before. So we have our growth plan of 10x. So growing the team underneath me to lead, to be able to fulfill that plan of doing more building, more acquisitions.
So we talk about Havercamp Group being a vertically integrated company. Could you explain what does that mean to be a vertically integrated company, and then how does Havercamp Construction, and then you also mentioned a little bit of the acquisition, that part, how does that all play into this vertically integrated company?
Yeah, you bet. So vertically integrated kind of means we do it all, from the beginning of putting together a project or a deal, buying the ground, designing it, constructing it, all the way to property management, asset management, accounting, kind of the whole thing's under our umbrella, and we control it all, and that's important to be able to have control over all those pieces.
So having control over those pieces, especially on the construction side, what advantage does that give us as an organization?
Well, it allows us to not rely on somebody else. And it allows us to have excellence in every piece of it. Instead of putting up with something that's not as good we'd like to see, we have the ability to change it and make it what we want it to be.
Really appreciate you sharing that part about excellence. So as we have grown, you talked about, people coming into the organization and adding to the team, and we'll talk about your team here in a few minutes. But as I've interacted with some of those gentlemen, thinking of Kevin, thinking of Matt, that as they've come in, that's one of the things that they've noticed that is different, because we are vertically integrated. We build and then we hold and retain, that we approach things differently, which they appreciate.
Yeah. One thing that Brent taught me early on was the ability to think like an owner, or make decisions like an owner. So everything we build, everything we touch, we plan to have the expectation to own it indefinitely.
Right.
So we take a lot of pride in what we're putting together.
Right.
So it's not just to try to maximize our profit or getting it done, getting out the door. Like, we're going to own this forever. And I've worked in maintenance. Like, I know the issues that come up in maintenance, and I don't want to just get it done. I want to get it done well. And I want to think about, like, well, what are people going to have to deal with 10 years from now?
Right.
After this building's built. So,
right.
That excellence is something that I take a lot of pride in what we do. And I like to think of it as something that I own, and I have ownership in it, because I'm putting my name on it and I'm building it.
Yeah, and that comes through with everybody on your team. This idea of ownership, and where I've seen that personally is as I've worked with construction on the property management side, and this is something we've gotten better at. It wasn't always right. It wasn't always roses and sunshine, as they say. But when construction would get done with a project and handed off to property management, and you mentioned it, you've been on the maintenance side, so there is this certain hey, you want to hand something off, and you want to do it in a way that is an asset to the property management side, and that we, there's always going to be issues. We know that, but sure. Let's talk about that. How have we developed going from where we were to where we are today, from taking a project and handing it off to property management?
Yeah, so it's a much bigger company now. So right. We used to all be a pretty tight group, and we just figured out. Right. And then we bring in new people that don't have kind of the history of being able to just figure things out.
Right.
It needed to become a little bit more of a synchronized process. So kind of identifying roles and responsibilities, and who's going to do what, and what's that going to look like at handover. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that everything's perfect.
Right. We
still get tight deadlines. We still get grass that doesn't grow. We still get contractors who don't show up, and that's stuff we have to pivot on and deal with. But it's working together as a team, because Havercamp Properties, Havercamp Construction, we're on the same team.
We are.
They're not, although we'd like to see them as a customer, they're not just a customer. We're on the same team, and like we're after the same goal.
Right.
We want not just to get the project done, we want it to rent.
Right.
We want the residents to be happy, because if they're not happy and it doesn't rent, we don't have another project to go do. Right. So we value the same things they do, and we create those processes to help everybody find success through that process.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that part where, it's not just handing it off and walking away, because we are a team. We are part of the same 10X plan, right. And we all want to see success, because success breeds success. And you talked about the asset management. So not are we managing properties. We want to do it in such a way that we're building value and worth. In fact, Havercamp Construction has a different purpose statement than what Havercamp Properties does. For Havercamp Construction, it is that we want to grow together through real estate. What does that mean to Zach, growing together through real estate?
Yeah, so we want to, the real estate is what we do. That's our purpose to be here and add value to the company through the construction in that real estate. So we want to grow. We have our 10X plan to grow. We want our employees to grow, to get better. We want to do that all together, so we can invest in personal development. We can all get better at what we're doing. We can learn new hard skills, become more knowledgeable in the field that we're in, and do that together as a team, right. So that we can build more buildings in the real estate. So
Havercamp Construction also has Sherry as their representative for the core values, but there's a slight little difference, and that's in the letter S, whereas on the property side, it's service, but on the construction or the rest of Havercamp Group, the word is stewardship.
Yeah.
Why is stewardship so important from your perspective?
Yeah. So I kind of look back at getting started, going back to my story with Paul, and Paul put an incredible amount of trust of his resources with me, someone he hardly knew, didn't really know what I could accomplish, but he put an extreme amount of trust in Zack, and that meant a lot to me. And kind of through my career, Brent's put a lot of trust in me. A lot of people have put a lot of trust in me, probably undeserved trust, with the resources they have to steward that, to take care of it, and to grow it.
Mm-hmm. So again, Sherry, the representation of our core values for Havercamp Construction, it's stewardship, hard work, accountability, results-driven, and integrity. So as you look across your team and as you think about those different core values, who are some different team members that really shine and resonate or live out those core values?
Yeah, I think of Eric, who came to us without a ton of construction background, but he works incredibly hard. And that's the same kind of process I went through to get to where I am today. I don't always know how to do things. And certainly starting out, I didn't know how to do things, but I worked hard and I figured it out. And Eric exemplifies that a lot too. As I think through my team, they're all a bunch of hard workers.
Yeah.
I think Kevin and Matt, and they're hard workers. The results driven. I think of Kevin, how he'll do anything to get the project done on time. I remember one time that we couldn't get some doors that we needed at the last minute in time, so he got in a U-Haul truck and drove down to Georgia or somewhere just to pick the door frames up, and came back, and so we had them on Monday morning. And that's not something you find in every employee who's willing just to put everything down and take his weekend and go across the country to pick up some door frames. And right. So that exemplifies what we're looking for in a results driven.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Zack, and probably not a coincidence, I guess, but when I think of you, the two core values I wrote down were hard work. I love you, sharing your story about how you, have gotten into the position you are, and hard work is very much a part of that. But then the other part I did put down was results driven, because in construction, I mean, it's, on time, on budget. Those are the two things that are very critical in construction. So results driven.
It's very measurable, right?
Yeah,
it's not ambiguous whether it's successful or not.
That's right.
So yeah, we work hard to get those deadlines hit, and it's hard sometimes. And sometimes the month before, we're scratching our heads saying, how are we going to get this done?
Right.
But we all come together. We work as a team. We help each other out, and we get it done.
Mm-hmm. Any certain projects that are your favorite or ones that you'd like to highlight?
The Ativo Trail was a new product for us 5-6 years ago, and from conception. So it was Brent's idea. But I feel like I had a lot of input in how it all kind of came together. So it was, at the time, I'm talking about the first building we did in Waukee. It was the largest residential building that existed in Waukee. In fact, the city seemed to be a little bit afraid of it. We kind of took it off in chunks, and it kind of came to what it is, and it was a really fun project to do. It was hard. It was different, but it was the end result was really fun. And then seeing residents move in who were just head over heels excited about living there. And that's something I hadn't seen in a conventional property. Sure, people move in and they say that's great, but these people were so thrilled because it's probably where they're going to live for the rest of their days.
Yes.
And it was really, really fun to put that together. And there was a lot of cool things. It was to put it together and have a home for these people to live in. And it was fun to have a part in that.
And so now that has expanded into Ankeny, and we are in the process of going through phase 2, and everything I hear, phase 2 is going along really well.
Right.
Yeah, so that's always encouraging. So looking forward to you delivering that over to the property management side, and for us to continue to, move people in. That community aspect, you're absolutely right. There is something special about going into those communities and seeing the men and women that live there, and
Right.
they really do enjoy it. But now that's also opened up a third opportunity. You want to talk about
Sure.
the
Yeah.
third Ativo?
We are exploring doing an Ativo trail in the Omaha market, and we feel that's a great next step for that product, as it's a bigger metropolitan area, a little more white collar, a little more room for rents there.
Uh-huh.
Land's more expensive. Construction seems a little more expensive. So there's some headwinds as well.
Right.
But we're really excited about taking that project to Omaha. And I think Omaha could maybe even support 2 Ativos in time. So as we think about growing, we think about not only taking our Ativos to that market, but then that opens opportunities to take other construction projects to the Omaha area and kind of make that another home location for us.
Ativo Omaha, would that be our first project outside the state of Iowa?
It will be our first project outside the state of Iowa. We took a little baby step outside. So prior to 2 years ago, we had never done a project outside of central Iowa. Mm-hmm. So we went to North Liberty, which is in the Iowa City market, mm-hmm. and built a conventional garden style project there called the Emery. And that was I can't say scary, but it was a challenging thought to, we're going to go to a place where we don't know any subcontractors. We don't have any employees,
right?
And try to do what we do well here. So we took that there, and we took the processes we developed. We hired some good people, made some good relationships with subcontractors, and it was a huge success.
Yes.
So there was bumps along the way, but we were able to overcome those. And when we go to Omaha, I'm sure we'll hit some hiccups along the way. We're going to overcome them. We're going to find new trade partners. We're going to find new employees, and I'm super excited about that opportunity.
Okay, so thinking about the growth and the 10X, what excites you most about that? Yeah, there's growing people underneath you, all those type of things. But yeah, what are some other things that really excite you about growth?
So for a long time, our construction department was a department of 2. Uh-huh. And we've grown that to, I think we have 8 people now. And the more bodies we get on our team, the more opportunities there are for synergy, for better culture, to find people with different strengths than the people that we currently have. Uh-huh. So opportunity to grow, opportunity to have more employees, opportunity to, as we grow, we can find different ways to do things better, because we have more team to spread it out upon. We have more people who are good at different things that some of us aren't. So being able to grow and have a bigger staff and a more depth of projects, more depth of experience is exciting for me.
Okay, Zach, we're at the part of our episode where we're going to participate in a game called Haverchamps, and you said you have listened to the first episodes, and you're familiar that I will ask you as many questions as I can, and you'll have to answer them as quickly as possible. They're just kind of random questions to kind of get to know you a little bit more. But our leaderboard has Dave Hyman at the top with 26, and then Brent is in second at 21. So
I'm guaranteed a top 3 spot.
Right now you are,
right.
Because this is episode 3, so you're guaranteed a top 3 spot as it stands today. So we're going to put 94 seconds on the clock. Braden's going to go ahead and do that, and he'll be our timer today, and he'll tell me when to stop. But are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Vacation or mountain getaway? Beach, vacation, or mountain getaway?
Beach.
All right, that's on me. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Dogs or cats?
Dog.
Hot or cold weather?
Cold.
What's your guilty pleasure snack?
Peanut M&Ms.
Okay. Comedy or dramas?
Drama.
Vegetables or fruits?
Vegetable.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
Favorite board game?
Sequence.
What's your favorite type of music?
Country.
How do you like your eggs cooked?
Scrambled.
What's one word that best describes you?
Steady.
Favorite Haverkamp core value?
Stewardship.
Project you're most proud of?
Ativo.
Favorite company event or tradition?
Quarterly meetings.
A skill that helps you in your job.
To-do lists.
One thing about Havercamp that you brag about.
It's people.
One thing you would say to your younger self.
Don't worry so much.
One thing that makes a great coworker.
Trust.
Best career advice you ever received.
Pass.
Okay. One thing that always makes you smile.
My kids.
One way you give back to the community.
Volunteer.
Okay, if Havercamp had a mascot, what would it be?
A dollar bill.
A dollar. All right. Here's a question I like to kind of close with: is do you have a personal mission statement? If so, what is your personal mission statement?
I'll simplify it down to faith, family, and work hard.
Okay, those are the things you like to
Yeah.
live by. Gotcha. So as we do wrap up, is there one thing that you wish you would have said today that you didn't?
I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to my wife because she works harder than me probably, keeping our house, raising the kids, and allows me to come to work every day and do this.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Zach, for being our guest today. And again, thank you, Graydon, for your work here. At Havercamp, we believe the strongest cultures are cultivated and grown with care and intention. Culture isn't just one person's job, it belongs to all of us. So until next time, keep leading and keep learning.